Okay, I am continuing my reading of the standard works, and what this series is I'm reading through the entire standard works of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This will consist of the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. I am reading in chronological order of events, not according to publication or volume, so I will be skipping around a bit. Right now, I am reading in the Bible, reading in Genesis still. And when I read in the Bible, if there are any, I will be including portions from the Joseph Smith translation, which is an inspired correction or translation done by Joseph Smith to restore those portions of the Bible that were lost over time. Right now, I am in chapter 38. Now, my last video was a little bit long because these chapters are full of information, so we will see how this one goes. And well, let's just start. Chapter 38. Judah has 3 sons by a Canaanite woman, and Onan slain by the Lord. Tamar, as a harlot, bears twins by Judah. And it came to pass at that time that Judah went down from his brethren and turned into a certain Adulamite, whose name was Hira. And Judah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite, whose name was Shua. And he took her and went in unto her. And she conceived and bare a son, and he called his name And she conceived again and bare a son, and she called his name Onan. And she yet again conceived and bare a son, and called his name Shelah. And he was at Kezib when she bare him. Okay, a couple of things here. Now, I got to go back just briefly to the previous chapter, where it said that all his, talk about Jacob mourning for Joseph, it says all his sons and all his daughters. Now, he only had one daughter, biologically, that was Dinah. So when it says all his daughters, it was talking about his sons' wives. So by the time that Joseph was sold into Egypt, a number of his brothers were already married. Probably Reuben, a couple of the older ones. This here's the story of Judah getting married. This probably did happen after Joseph was sold into Egypt. So, second thing, Judah is marrying a Canaanite. His sons born to a Canaanite would not be able to hold the priesthood because the Canaanites could not hold the priesthood. Now, we aren't given any indication, any direct indication that Jacob disapproved of this marriage, but considering how Abraham and Isaac felt about marrying Canaanites, we can imagine that Jacob would not have approved of Judah marrying would not have approved this particular marriage. But he had 3 sons by this Canaanite woman. So, verse 6. And Judah took a wife for his firstborn, whose name was Tamar. And Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord slew him. And Judah said unto Onan, Go in unto thy brother's wife, and marry her, and raise up seed to thy brother. Now, just pause. We don't know what did to incur the wrath of God. It says he was wicked, and God the Lord slew him. I personally think that he was taking after the traditions of the Canaanites, which were not great. We'll put it that way. Now, some of the Canaanites had been good. I mean, as I said, in the time of Abraham, Abimelech was a great guy. I think he was a very righteous man. But by this time, this is 3 generations later, is taking on, I think he was taking on some of the traditions of his mother, who was a Canaanite. And because of this, the Lord slew him. Now, Judah is telling Onan to marry his wife. This is what is later known as a Levirate marriage, where if a man dies without children, his brother marries his wife, and the first son born to the brother is counted as the son of the brother that died. And this is what's going on. So Onan was to marry Tamar and have a son, and that son would be given the name of and become the heir of So that's what's going on here. Verse 9, And Onan knew that the seed should not be his. And it came to pass, when he went in unto his brother's wife, that he spilled it on the ground, lest that he should give seed to his brother. And the thing which he did displeased the Lord, wherefore he slew him also. Then said Judah to Tamar his daughter-in-law, Remain a widow at thy father's house till Shelah my son be grown. For he said, Lest peradventure he die also, as his brethren did. And Tamar went and dwelt in his father's house, in her father's house, sorry. So what happened here is that Onan he knew that the children that Tamar had would be considered hers and not his. Now, he had no problem having sex with her, but to prevent having children with her, he pulled out so that he would not get her pregnant. And because of that, because he was in direct violation of this law of God, he would not allow his brother to have seed. God slew him as well. And Judah now, a little bit worried, he's got 2 sons killed. Shelah is not quite old enough, so Judah says, well, hold off for a little bit there, Tamar. Just live in my house, and when my younger son gets old enough, we'll have you marry him, and he can give you children. Verse 12. And in process of time, the daughter of Shua, Judah's wife, died, and Judah was comforted and went up unto his sheep shearers to Timnath, he and his friend Hira the Adulamite. And it was told Tamar, saying, Behold, thy father-in-law goeth up to Timnath to shear his sheep. And she put her widow's garments off from her, and covered her with a veil, and wrapped herself, and sat in an open place, which is by the way to Timnath. For she saw that Shelah was grown, and she was not given unto him to wife. When Judah saw her, he thought her to be an harlot, because she had covered her face. So in other words, like I said, Judah was a little worried for his 3rd son, and so he kept putting off letting Tamar marry him. And so this is why Tamar is doing this. Now, Judah's wife is dead. He is a widower. And then we get this here. Verse 16. And he turned unto her by the way, and said, Go to, I pray thee, let me come in unto thee. For he knew not that she was his daughter-in-law. And she said, What wilt thou give me, that thou mayest come in unto me? Of course, playing a harlot, she's a prostitute. She's playing the part of a prostitute, so she's asking for payment. Verse 17, and he said, I will send thee a kid from the flock. And she said, Wilt thou give me a pledge till thou send it? And he said, What pledge shall I give thee? And she said, Thy signet, and thy bracelets, and thy staff that is in thine hand. And he gave it her, and came in unto her, and she conceived by him. So he had a signet ring to mark as a seal on any transactions he did. And then the bracelets, probably fairly valuable. The staff would have also been, this wasn't just a wooden stick. It would have been a well-made carved staff. And verse 19, and she arose and went away and laid by her veil from her and put on the garments of her widowhood. And Judah sent the kid by the hand of his friend the Adulamite to receive his pledge from the woman's hand, but he found her not. Then he asked the men of that place, saying, Where is the harlot that was openly by the wayside? And they said, There was no harlot in this place. And he returned to Judah and said, I cannot find her. And also the men of the place said that there was no harlot in this place. And Judah said, Let her take it to her, lest we be shamed. Behold, I sent this kid, and thou hast not found her. So Judah's content. He's saying, Look, I did my part. Oh, well, she's got my stuff, but we're not going to do anything. Because remember, she played the part of a harlot, but she wasn't actually a prostitute. And the people there, apparently there were no prostitutes in the area. And so the men here was like, what are you talking about? Anyways, let's finish this out. Verse 24. And it came to pass about 3 months after, that it was told Judah, saying, Tamar, thy daughter-in-law, hath played the harlot, and also behold, she is with child by whoredom. And Judah said, Bring her forth, and let her be burnt. When she was brought forth, she sent to her father-in-law, saying, By the man whose these are, I am with child. And she said, Discern, I pray thee, whose are these? The signet and bracelets and staff. And Judah acknowledged them and said, She hath been more righteous than I, because I gave her not to Shelah my son. And he knew her again no more. Okay, now what's going on here is, he finds out she's pregnant. It says, let her be burnt, because for adultery, and it would have been considered adultery. She was a widower. Well, she was a widow pledged to Shelah. So for her to be sleeping with anybody else would have been considered adultery and therefore would have been punishable by death. And so he says, bring her out and burn her. They were going to burn her at the stake, basically. That was the punishment. But then she sends his signet and his bracelets and his staff and says, these belong to the father. Tell me, you're still going to kill me? And Jacob and Judah, and Judah admits he was the one that slept with her, and he admits that he was wrong for not giving his third son to her. But it does say, and he knew her again no more. He didn't take her for his wife. Or he probably did legally marry her, but he never slept with her again. So, verse 27. And it came to pass in the time of her travail that, behold, twins were in her womb. And it came to pass when she travailed that the one put out his hand, and the midwife took and bound upon his hand a scarlet thread, saying, This came out first. And it came to pass, as he drew back his hand, that, behold, his brother came out. And she said, How hast thou broken forth? This breach be upon thee. Therefore his name was called Pharez. And afterward came out his brother that had the scarlet thread upon his hand, and his name was called Zerah. Now, just a quick thing on this chapter. I do find that story a little bit funny. The one kid, she's giving birth, and one son sticks out his hand and then pulls it back, and the other son is born first. I just find that kind of funny. But you'll note later on, of course, Pharez is the one that gains the birthright, not Shelah. Now, Shelah couldn't gain the birthright because he was born of a Canaanite woman. Therefore, he could not have the priesthood, and the birthright is passed along through the priesthood, and therefore he couldn't have it. Pharez does get the priesthood. He gets the birthright, which indicates that Tamar was not a Canaanite. And I kind of think, to some degree, that Judah, he fell in love with the woman Shua, the Canaanite woman. I think he loved her. He married her. But he got his son a wife who was not a Canaanite, kind of in a way to try and keep him in the faith. And that didn't really work, as we see. But Tamar was clearly not Canaanite because her sons were able to inherit the birthright. But we will leave that here, and we'll see you in the next one.